It costs us money to take care of people that are struggling, and we have to take care of people that are struggling because if they struggle more, we all struggle more. It costs us all more, and so I think we all do better when people are less poor. And I think these are the kinds of investments that they benefit the environment, they can benefit people directly, and by lifting a region like Appalachia economically, everybody does better. I think the country would be stronger. I think our states would be better off, and there'd be more opportunity for everybody. My name's Marley Green. I work for Apple Shop in Whitesburg, Kentucky, but I live in the town of Pound, Virginia, in Wise County. I've lived in Wise County off and on since 2009. Kind of originally moved to the area for an internship and just kind of really fell in love with Southwest Virginia and Eastern Kentucky, kind of Central Appalachia as a whole. I work as a community development worker, so I do some fundraising and kind of grant writing and development, and then I also work a lot with community organizations in both Southwest Virginia and Eastern Kentucky around projects that kind of improve the quality of life for people in the area. So it's trails and it's art and it's kind of cultural festivals. I'm a father. I have a 14, 15-month-old baby at home, and I love canoeing, I love hiking, I love traditional music, I love punk music, I love hardcore music. I don't know what all to say about myself. So I'm also a town council member for the town of Pound. I was elected in May of 2020 to a term on the town council in Pound. So that's been really interesting to get to see kind of the the meat and potatoes of how municipal services work and kind of the struggles of small towns in the area right now. Some of the challenges that I see in Pound are around population loss. We've lost 10% of the population or more in the last decade, and pretty much every decade for the last 50 years. The town of Pound and Wise County have lost somewhere between 10 and 20% of the population. And so that represents taxpayers, that represents sales tax, employee tax. So these are all taxes that the town is lost out on. And so there's just fewer resources just from population loss. In addition to that, we've seen the coal severance tax in 2009, so that was 10 years ago, already after years of decline, that number was $200,000 a year for the town's budget. Now that number is $25,000 every year. And we expect that to continue to decline. That's money that went to support infrastructure, town staff, things like street repair and sidewalk repair. And so that's money that's just not available anymore. And so between loss of population and businesses related to the decline in the coal industry, to loss of severance taxes from the coal industry that was sort of direct transfer to towns, the town's budget is much smaller than it used to be. And at the same time, the cost of maintaining our water and sewer infrastructure has gone up, right? So these are old kind of water systems that have increasing costs as they get older. And so it's kind of intersecting issues here that makes it really hard for small towns like Pound in the coal fields to kind of dig out of this hole and chart a path forward. We're less able to provide services. There are fewer services that we're able to provide as the town. So more people leave, and fewer people want to move back or start a business in town. And so it's just this really tough spiral for towns. So Wise County is facing similar challenges, Letcher County here in Kentucky. There's just not a clear way forward, I think, besides reducing services or raising taxes or both. One thing that happens when you have towns with such fewer resources, and there's conflict about what we should do to move forward, and sometimes that conflict gets really loud and really hurtful. And so I think there's also this challenge of just getting people together to think about how to move forward together, just getting people to talk to each other. When resources are scarce, people are fighting for kind of the scraps and fighting for the decisions about what should happen. When you kind of zoom out and look at the whole region as a whole, you add issues around water pollution and air pollution from sort of old mines that aren't being reclaimed or taken care of, or that are just continuing to kind of impact the environment. I think this broader economic challenge that the region as a whole faces is, it's not just one town or one county that's losing population and losing businesses, it's this entire region. And so there's not, kind of have to leave the area to find new opportunities. And so young people especially are leaving to find, jobs and opportunities. And those are our most creative, innovative, hardworking, or passionate people. There's a struggle around defining ourselves culturally in the region and where we're going, and what we have to look forward to and what we can hope for. Saying all that, I think there's also lots of really cool opportunities and lots of amazing people coming up with new solutions and new ideas. I think there is this debt that the country owes to the work that's been done, to the resources that have come out of Appalachia. Oh, I mean, to me, it's clear as day. Appalachia, especially, we contributed the coal that built the cities. And we contributed the coal that created the electricity to build suburban developments all over the country. Absolutely contributed workers and soldiers to the wars of this country, and we had folks leave the area to go work in car factories and other factories to help build the cars. So much of this country, I think, has a debt to the people and to the land of Appalachia, and I think it would be very reasonable for the country to kind of pay back some of that debt through contributions to creating a future that's livable for people here. There's a big need for basic infrastructure on so many towns and counties around here. And I think there's a lot of room for the federal and state governments to be helping at that level, right? Really targeted to making sure that these basic services like clean water, clean sewer, streets and sidewalks, that those basic services are secure. The Reclaim Act and similar bills that would kind of bolster the funds for reclamation have a huge potential to create a new source of jobs, a new source of income for families in Appalachia through reforestation efforts. There's a huge amount of land in the area that's been poorly reclaimed or partially reclaimed or reclaimed using old techniques. When science has continued to show us that there are ways we can bring forests back better and stronger on surface mines, but the funds just aren't there to do that work. Some of the kind of older regulations around reclamation didn't have the highest standards and weren't enforced sufficiently, and so there's just so much land where not enough is happening right now, and where there's liabilities of pollution coming off of these sites. If there were more funds to support that, I think there's this incredible opportunity for a new way of making a living for thousands of people in the region, growing food and forests on surface mines. It's an investment in our future. I think it's a way to immediately create jobs and work for people, but it's an investment that will pay off, dividends and dividends for decades to come if we can create forests, especially productive forests that have products that can be harvested over years. And I think especially thinking about the way that coal and gas and oil have been, really one-time kind of things, is you take a piece of coal and it's gone. But with trees and non-timber forest products and silviculture and these kinds of things, these kinds of industries that can grow on surface mines, they're sustainable. We can, harvest one year and then the next year there's a different crop, or, in 10 years, that same crop of trees, of, switchgrass for fuel. I mean, there's all these opportunities for sustainable production on these sites that aren't a one-time thing. They're perennial. They're regrowing. But we need investment, and it's an investment that will take years to really get a return on. And so I think there's investors that would be interested in these kinds of investments. But when you look at, maybe it's going to take 5, 10, 15, or even 30 years to get a return on this, I think a lot of investors step back from it. But I think this is a place where the federal and state governments can kind of lead the way and say, this is a good investment. It will take time, but it's worth it. And I think it's the kind of investment that would benefit small towns and counties and the region as a whole. When people are in poverty, it costs towns, it costs counties, it costs states money to help them, right? To provide food stamps, to provide welfare, to provide access to childcare and education. That costs society funds. I live in Virginia. I know that Virginia would be better off as a state economically and culturally if we can help people, help the region create new opportunities. That will benefit everybody. if Appalachia is less poor across, across the board, everybody benefits. You think about pollution from surface mines in eastern Kentucky and southwest Virginia, that's going into water, into rivers and streams that then goes downstream. And so places like, Bristol, Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, Louisville, these are all cities that are downstream from these surface mines and from these communities. And they're having to clean that water. They're having to take those pollutants out of the water. That costs them money. If we can clean up pollution in the headwaters of rivers, it benefits downstream cities. I think it's hard for people to see that sometimes. But to me, yeah, again, it's clear as day. It benefits Louisville if Eastern Kentucky is doing better. It benefits, Richmond, Virginia, and Knoxville, Tennessee if Southwest Virginia is doing better. And it benefits it through cleaner water, through less tax money needing to support people in poverty. Climate change is going to cost Virginia so much money when it comes to what are we going to do with Norfolk, and kind of Tidewater, Virginia, that's going to see, sea level increases and people are going to have to move. That's going to cost us money. And anything that we can do now to reduce, the effects of climate change and reforesting surface mines in Appalachia will help with climate change. Making more forests on the million acres of surface mines in Appalachia will reduce the effects of climate change in coastal cities. So to me, it should be worth it. It's worth it. I grew up kind of partly outside of DC, and we've got some mountains there, but never really seen big mountains until I moved here, and I fell in love with the area because of the forests, because of the incredible diversity of species in the forests. And I go for a walk just out my back door, and I see more trees, in half a mile walking than more kinds of trees, more species of trees than exist in the whole county that I went to high school in. That was one of the first things I really fell in love with. I also fell in love with the rivers, the lakes, the geographic beauty of that abundance. After that, I really fell in love with the music and the art and the culture. Part of it, I think, comes from a culture of, people being in a place and in conversation with the land and with the sort of bounty of the land for many generations. But then it also comes from, a big influx of immigrants from all over the world in the 20th century that fused with that culture that was here. And so it's diverse and it's dynamic, and it's not just one culture. It's not just a banjo. It's the banjo and the fiddle and the jaw harp and the mixing boards. It's also the electric guitars. There's just an incredible, I think, richness about the art and music that people make here that really I didn't expect. I didn't, and I don't think it gets talked about enough outside of the region, just how dynamic and diverse the culture and the music is here. We risk losing some of that dynamism and creativity that's in the region when people are struggling to live here and to stay here and to make a future here. There's a kindness in people here that was a little different from where I grew up. And, there's people have strong opinions, but they're also willing to sit and listen and hear somebody else's perspective and hear a different story and to share their stories and to see themselves in each other. And I think I was really attracted by that and by just the warmness of a lot of people that I met. Even when we had different political viewpoints, or we had different backgrounds or like different music or whatever, there was always a place where we could interact. I don't think it can be stressed enough in how dire the situation is for a lot of municipalities and counties and towns and cities in Appalachia that have lost so much of their tax base. You could draw the line at 50 years ago when the decline began, or 10 years ago when it really sped up, or 30 years ago. Wherever you draw the line, there's been this drastic decline in the tax base of towns and counties across the region. And if there isn't support from state and federal and other agencies, I think there are going to be a lot of people without clean drinking water in this region. I think we're seeing it in some places that have gotten really high profile, like Martin County, Kentucky. I think the water crisis in West Virginia, about 10 years ago is also another case. But I think if we don't do something as a country and as a society to support these systems, these infrastructure, we're gonna have a lot of people without clean drinking water right here in the heart of our country. And I think I don't think that's right as an American, that anybody shouldn't have access to clean drinking water. The longer we wait, the harder it is to dig out of this problem. We need to act now, or else it will be even more expensive. The solution is investment in new economic opportunities, like reclaiming strip mines. I think it's direct investment in municipalities that need funds to correct their water systems and their infrastructure systems. I think both of those solutions both of those actions can also benefit the rest of the country on climate change, right? And on clean drinking water in other places. What I've seen shift a little bit in the region is a focus on just economic development, which sometimes has meant, just build a bigger road and more businesses will come, or just build another industrial park, and then we can put big businesses there. And I think what we're finding is that it's not just about providing those sorts of roads or basic infrastructure for big businesses. It's that workers and businesses and business owners, they want to live there, right? Or like we can create businesses when we have a community that people want to live in, right? We can create new economic opportunities when people want to live in a place because it has good trails and it has arts and culture and music and good drinking water. There's these basic infrastructure of water and sewer that I think we need to focus on. And then I think we need to focus on our seeing success around when we have a community that has a walking trail and art and music, that people want to be there. People want to move there, and we'll create opportunities that allow them to live there. And I think there are other things like housing and childcare that also help people move to or stay in a place. These pieces of arts and culture that maybe economic development professionals, don't look at enough or don't value enough. We here at Appalshop and in Eastern Kentucky, I think we see a lot of success around if we can help create a community with culture and arts and music and recreation, that economic development follows. And I think there's also something about arts and culture that help people come together and figure out new ways forward. There's something about going to a concert with somebody, meeting somebody at a concert that maybe you've lived in the same town together forever but never talked, but now you know that you have this shared love of that band or that music, and then you can start talking about other things. And I think I've seen that personally a number of times where people have known each other for years but never worked together, and now they're working on putting on music events and festivals, and on the side they're joining the Economic Development Authority committee, and figuring out how they can work together to bring in a new business. So I think there's something about supporting arts and culture that has these ripple effects that haven't often been, I think, valued by economic development, but I think it's real.